Hello, everyone. We are welcome to the 12th class out of 16 classes for the training in data analytics, introduction to SQL and Python. So we are going to go into this topic now. I'm going to share my screen. We're still continuing on SQL. Today is the 5th lesson we're having on SQL. Right, so let me share my screen. Full screen mode now. Great. Yeah, I believe you can all see my screen. Okay, so for today's class, we're going to be understanding the terminology of CRUD, what it means and its importance. We've been using it, but we just would explain it in clear terms and why people say CRUD. Then other forms of SQL statements, which are also part of CRUD, insert, update, and delete. Then how to write and execute multiple SQL statements, right? We've been doing some simple scripts, and then gradually we've been doing some scripts that are nested, because most times you might need to write some nested scripts. So we are going to see how to write some more interesting scripts that are multiple, and then we'll go straight into our demo. Okay, great. So when you hear the word CRUD or you see the word CRUD, sometimes these are placed in adverts, job adverts, to say, oh, the applicant should be able to implement CRUD operations, right? So CRUD simply means operations as regards programming or data manipulation, that stands for create, read, update, and delete. So it's just an acronym. And the reason for CRUD is because almost every form of programming or application or automation involves manipulating data in that regard. So for instance, for an organization tracking customers' data or payment or health data, this data would be created in some form, maybe in some data entry form. For instance, if you go to an hospital as a patient, you would need to first register as a patient. At the point of registration, a form is filled or created for you. So at that point, a patient ID, which is unique to you, is also created. So this information about you is entered into the hospital database through a software. It could be a mobile software, it could be an application on the computer, it could be in some other different forms. Remember, I told you that there is always a call. Sometimes they call it API, like Application Programming Interface Call, between a software and another software, or a software and the database that will store the data. So that is just the link through which the data is traveling. But the concept still remains the same, that data is being created. So at that point, data is created for an entity or for a subject. Data could also be created, like we discussed about data collection on field in the data analytics process. So at that point, data is created as well, right? So the sensor is collecting data and transmitting the data to some database, maybe in the cloud or in some premises. So these are various forms in which data is being created. And the next operation in CRUD is read. Sometimes it's named retrieve. So read or retrieve is used most often to view the data that has been created, or to get to retrieve information that has been created. So still going back to the hospital example, after your first visit in which you have been registered as a patient, if you go to the hospital on another visit, or you require to see a doctor or to get some services from the hospital, the staff, which may not necessarily be the staff who registered you, will just need to read your data information or retrieve your data information. And then there must be a link to doing that. In this regards, it could be your hospital ID or your patient ID. So remember, we've been doing a lot of select. So select is a key example of read or retrieve operations, right, from the database. Now, when this data is retrieved from the database, it is sent via the tunnel, which is your application call, API call, or sometimes it could be a plugin or whatever, through to the software, and then displayed for that staff to view and verify your information, right? So most times there are several select or read calls to databases to read information about the data. Another operation is the update. So if, for instance, you need to change your hospital plan. Let's say you were on a basic plan before, and then you want to upgrade to some kind of executive plan or so. Then in that case, your information needs to be updated. So the update call from the software and from the DB would do that. Then we have the delete. So the delete operation can be used to delete a patient record from the hospital DB. In most cases, delete operation is hardly used because data is rarely destroyed. Data is rarely taken out, except maybe it's an inconsistent data or a data that was created by error. Right. So the CRUD operation, we are already familiar with them because we have been using, we have been hearing about them in the explanation of data analytics. We have also been using them partly in our SQL statements, right? But the concept is just for us to know that CRUD operations are used to create what we call full stack projects or applications, right? So what I have just described to you with the hospital software and DB is what we call a full stack project or a full stack application. So when they say they are looking for a full stack developer, these are the things that such a developer would do or would understand how to do, right? So the ability to create, to read, update, delete items from a web application is crucial to any full stack project. Okay, so on my screen, I've given you statements in database management systems that matches with these operations. So we have done some of these statements, but for update and delete, we have not really touched on them. So these are part of the things we're going to touch on in our today's demo. They are quite straightforward, and you can extend them by where clause, just like you extend your select statement. So I'm just going to go in quickly and show us basic syntaxes of these operations. Okay, right. So we've done a lot of create operations. So your create operations can be for create DB or create table. And so I'm just going to touch on insert statements. So for insert statements, Insert statements are used to insert new record. We have actually been inserting new record, but we've been doing that from the click method from the user interface. But of course, you can write simple scripts as well to do insert. Okay, I think in yesterday's class, I did an insert. I wrote a script, insert script. So, right, so your insert script can be in two types. You can have insert into tables, and then you specify the columns and then the values. Then you can also have insert into table without specifying the column. But in this second syntax type, you must ensure that you write out all the values for all the columns in the same order. So it's always safe to specify your column name and then specify the values. When you specify column names and values, it will match column 1 to value. Sorry, it will match column 1 to value 1, column to value 2, column 3 to value 3, and so on and so forth. And if you have a column that accepts null, right, you may not need to specify the value when doing your insert, right? So that's a basic syntax for insert statements. We are going to still write more insert statements in our demo session. Then we have the insert into select statement, right? Insert into select statements is used to create tables or create a copy of an existing table. So I can do insert into a new table, right? And then I'm selecting the values for that new table from another table. So this is just like a way of creating a copy of table 1 into table 2. Now, I might also want to create a copy of table 2 that is a copy of table 1 that differs from table 2 in the sense that I'm specifying some conditions, or I might be specifying some columns. I might not be taking all the columns, right? So in that regards, I need to specify the columns that would be in my select. I need to specify the condition, right? So it's just going to be insert into table 2. Then the number of columns I specify here is the number of columns I'll define for the table, right? I don't need to define the field type because it will just automatically take the type from the previous table. So this is another option of using the insert statement. These are ways of creating copies of your data. Right, then we have the update statement. The update statement is used to modify an existing record, just like I explained when I was explaining CRUD operations, right? So for you to update a record, you have to specify the table name. So update table name, then set the column, right, to the value. Now, you must be careful to always ensure you put the where condition. If you do not put the where condition, your update is going to update all the values within your column. So update statements are very sensitive, right? So for instance, if I'm updating for a particular patient, just like I described in the scenario, I need to specify that update patient table set plan to executive plan where patient ID is the value given. So I must specify the condition. If I do not specify for a particular patient, it will update for all the patients in the table. Then you have the delete statement, right? The delete statement is basically used to delete existing records in a table. Apart from delete, you also have some similar statements in SQL that work almost the same way as delete, and these are drop and truncate command. We've used drop command in some of our examples in the previous class. And you can use drop in two ways, either as drop table or as drop database. So the difference between the delete and the drop command is that the delete statement will delete existing records, but the table will still remain. But if you say drop table, then you would not see that table and the records anymore. It's gone, right? So it's always depending on what you want to achieve. Let's say the table is no longer needed, then you can use drop table. But if you still need the table and you only want to remove some records in that table, you can use delete statement. So these are the difference. And of course, if you use drop database, that database is deleted plus all the content within the database. So drop command is a very, very sensitive command and is rarely used except by data administrators. Then you have the truncate command. The truncate command and delete command are used to do the same thing. I used to delete all the rows from a table, but the truncate command is faster, and then truncate command keeps a log. It will write the action into your log table, right? And but the difference again is that for truncate command, you can't you can't roll back. That's you can't get back your data. But for delete, you can still roll back. So it depends. In some cases, you might want to use truncate. In some cases, you might want to use delete command. We are going to try both in our demo session. And these are the syntaxes for them. For the delete command, you simply use delete from table name. Same thing too with truncate, because they work both on table, truncate table, then table name. For the delete command, you can specify where condition, meaning that using the delete command, you can delete some part of your records and leave some part. But if you are using truncate command, you are ultimately deleting everything, all the data records within your table, right? So, and you can't use the where condition on truncate command. Truncate command does not allow the where clause except for delete. Then for drop table, for drop, you can use drop table, table name, or drop database, database name. So we have used some of these commands, but we just needed to see where they interconnect in the CRUD operations. So that's that. I just wanted to explain the CRUD terminology to us and make us understand statements in SQL that link to CRUD operations. So lastly, I'm just going to explain to us and demo to us afterwards that in SQL as well, you can execute multiple SQL statements. And for you to execute multiple SQL statements, you just need to write those statements on each line, and then highlight all together to execute, right? So this comes handy, for example, when you want to insert records from an external data file. For example, remember we imported data from Excel into our SQL management system. Yeah, we can do that again in a different way, though that way seems to be manual, but sometimes the understanding of that comes handy. To do that using Excel, you are just going to use Excel concatenation command to create your multiple inserts, and then copy and paste on your query and execute. I'm going to show us how to do that as well in the demo. In fact, I'm going to start with this part of the demo. So Today's class brief talk ends here. We are going to go into the demo session now. You can watch the next video to practice the demo, and please feel free to send me a copy of your query file that you have done in your practice, or you can make a copy of your database and send via email as well to me to see the things that you have practiced. Okay, thank you. See you in the next class. Bye for now.